Welcome, everyone. This is CX Confessions, SurveyMonkey's live stream opportunity to have authentic, real, honest conversations with CX leaders. And today we have one of the best of the best. My good friend Tony Rodoni is joining us from Salesforce, where he leads customer experience. Welcome, Tony.
Hi, Christine. It's great to be here today.
It's great to be here. It's great to be here with you from our homes, obviously. Where are you? Where are you sheltering in place from, Tony?
I'm a lucky person. I'm in Santa Barbara, California right now.
Fantastic. And I was telling him that I'm visiting my mom for the couple days. So I'm in actually my childhood home. So welcome to where I grew up in San Rafael, California. Well, welcome. Welcome to all of you joining from home. We are so glad to have you. We'll be together for the next 30 minutes. Please, please, please use this opportunity to ask questions, share comments, share where you're dialing in from. We've been loving how global our audiences has been that's been joining these conversations. So please ask questions. We'll do our best to answer them live, and if not, certainly follow up with you. So let's dive in. Tony, have you spent your entire career in customer experience? And if not, what was your journey?
Yeah. Hi, Christine. It's been no, I have not spent my whole career in customer experience. I think the whole journey got me here. And I like to say I wasn't looking for customer experience. Customer experience found me. I've been at Salesforce for just coming up on 14 years. And I've been running the customer experience team just for the last year and a half since we created this overarching program at the company. And my career has been in engineering, as a programmer in R&D, then I was in product marketing and product management, and then in sales. And I think that all set me up because a lot of customer experience is working with all these other departments and constituents. And I spent a little bit of time in each of those roles. And probably about 15, 16 months ago, we at Salesforce decided we wanted to create a real customer experience program. Now to be clear, there was lots of customer experience function in the company. There's voice of customer in a few different departments, especially in product and support and customer service. There is really good road mapping work that's done in areas. There's lots of good scorecards. There's usability and design teams. But we really wanted a way to not merge all those teams together, but multiply them throughout the company. And we created a small team. There's 4 of us that are leading this program for a company of upwards of 50,000 now.
You've already hit on so many relevant and important points. One is the cross-functional nature and the benefit of that experience. We meet regularly with a roundtable of CX leaders, and folks come from IT and business systems and product and marketing and sales. So the importance of that sort of working cross-functionally, and then also thinking about sort of how to amplify and connect the dots from the projects that are already there. So I'm assuming, as you mentioned, you step into this role. You know, you're one asked to take this important role. I imagine sounds wonderful, but also intimidating. Like, what if, like, you got this big organization, you got all these efforts underway. Tell me a bit about the process of even considering taking the role. What was exciting to you, and what scared you?
Yeah, boy. So I think this is natural for all of us in CX. I think the power and the fear are one and the same, of the flip side of the same coin. The power is we can impact the experience for all of our customers. I mean, imagine with a few of the programs we do, how it multiplies to every interaction customers have with us. And on the other hand, that's the scary part about it is when it's not going well, or at least my personality type is, I feel a tremendous amount of ownership to fix that for every single customer. And you kind of have to free yourself a little bit to be, every problem that happens everywhere is not, let's say, my problem to solve. But if I can fix it, it can get fixed for everybody all at once. And really, it's the leverage that comes with it that is exciting. I also think this is, everybody you've had on this series, they've all had a bunch of other things they've done in their career. And I won't say this is the capstone or pinnacle, but you need to do those other things to make sure you understand how this fits in, and that you can collaborate and really work well with others and make it fit in the company. I like to say my job is to advocate for CX, but I also, having been in other parts of the business, I want to say it is really important. But it's not always the most important thing. And I think for all CX leaders, we have to know that we're walking this tightrope or a teeter totter, that it matters. It's the amount of ingredient, the weighting of it. Look right now with COVID, right? Probably for every CFO and every CEO, nothing is more important than cash right now. Customer experience matters in the long run, but probably doesn't matter in this week to them as much as making sure they have cash to keep the business afloat.
I couldn't agree more. You hit, I love you hit at such the heart. One, you mentioned, and I want to get back to kind of that business context and that perspective, because if you couldn't agree more, if you don't have that, you're paddling upstream, and you can come off to your executives as being tone deaf. But you hit on something that I've become more aware of in myself, which is, a lot of CX leaders, they are so passionate about doing right for their customers. And if you, and you need that passion and you need that commitment, um, if you don't, if you aren't balancing that, you've got to kind of watch it, because you can miss the broader context. But I feel the same way you do, Tony, where if I'm taking the time, not my time, my customers' time, asking them for feedback, and
Yep.
I can't mobilize my organization to take action and to listen, I feel like I personally am failing our customers. And so and I hear that from a lot of other folks. And you mentioned that it's what makes the role so wonderful, but it's also what can bring that fear and we hear over and over from CX leaders of so easily feeling overwhelmed. How do you kind of manage that?
So let's see. I think a couple things. One is it's overwhelming because you can change the experience for all these customers. Embrace it, hug it, put it on your shoulder, and say hello, overwhelming feelings. Because this is a superpower that we can have. But
Yeah.
here's the way I think about this, and maybe this comes a little bit from the latter period of my career where I spent a lot of time in sales. I don't think it's our job to convince the company my job isn't to convince everybody that this is the most important thing. My job is to help them convince themselves that this is important. And so therefore, it's really their job to understand and to see how it fits in with everything else. So I want to make sure that I know what it's like when you have these overly enthusiastic
Yeah.
people who don't let go, and when you see them coming, when you're walking down the hall and you see them coming and you turn to go to the coffee machine instead, because they're so singularly focused on that one thing and they're not multiple. And I think it's really important to be empathetic and understand that the parts of the business are trying to manage all these dimensions, and we're trying to help advocate for one piece and make that one piece work. But let me hit one part. You may already be teeing it up to talk about this, but I think this is a really important thing that you were alluding to, and that's how do we ask people for feedback? And even in my short year and a half or so in this, one of my new rules, we're not perfect at it, but I no longer want to ask or do a survey or get feedback if we haven't agreed in advance that we're going to take some action based on what we receive. As opposed to, yep, we have voice of customer, we collect this, and then nobody knows what to do with it, or they haven't pre-thought of a plan. Hey, I love it. Let that phone ring. This is real life, Christine.
It is real life. Oh, there it is. I don't even know where my mom's phone is in here, but there it is. I found it.
So let's make sure, and this is a piece of feedback we hear from customers. I'm sure every company that's on this call today hears it. Boy, we give you feedback all the time. We never hear what you've done with it.
Yeah.
And it's really important that, one, you close loop and tell people what you've done with it. Secondly, you can make your job easier if you tell the company, we're actually not going to go out and get any input until we do some agreement on, if we get some input, are we willing to take action on it? And basically get people to agree in advance they are going to take action on some of the most important pieces. And that's a hard agreement to get.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And we were talking before the cameras turned on. I had my executive update yesterday, and that was one of the my CEO Xander asked, what would you recommend we do? And I said we have an opportunity, and it doesn't mean closing the loop. When you have larger customers, you are often asking them and having conversations and closing the loop one on one. But when you have a business with millions of customers, we have 17 million active users, 700,000 paying customers.
Yeah.
It's not realistic that we're closing the loop with every single customers, but we're certainly, that does not mean we can't close the loop in mass and in groups and say, we hear you and we know that there's energy here and we know we can do better here. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but that's what I signed myself up for to improve.
The thing I can tell you I love in the voice of customer is, and I'm sure this is the same for you. You can go in and tell Xander or somebody, here's what I've heard, and it kind of is muted.
I
But then
know.
you put it up in the words of the customers, or you show a video of a customer saying it, and it feels like a knife to the heart.
Yeah.
And that I think it's important for us as CX leaders. When people say, "What are you hearing?" we can't say, "This is what I'm hearing." We have to say, "Well, let me show you what they're saying,"
Yeah.
and that is much more powerful than you and I saying it. And it's just a part of human nature. I don't feel uncomfortable that that's what happens. I can bet to everybody listening here, it happens in your company too. You could go in and tell your CEO, "We've been hearing this 20 times or
Yeah.
100 times or a million." And then one day, and they're going to say, "Whatever, Tony, Christine, Bob, we got other priorities." And then they'll hear it directly from a customer, and they'll turn to you or me and say, "How come you didn't tell me?" And the
Abs-
answer is, we told you a lot. But the weighting is different when you hear it internally.
of course, of course. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. For those who are watching live, if you have if you're leading customer experience and or play a part, I'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear thoughts, reactions, questions you have for Tony. I think you hit on a key area that is often hotly contested among CX leaders, which is, you know, you hear so much about customer experience program. You got to measure the impact. You got to measure the ROI. You got to have a measurable program. If you're not running a measurable program, you're missing the boat. And so tie it to the financials and
Yep.
track your net promoter from a 37 to 40 and demonstrate the value. And then there's this other part of the role that's about the art. It's about the storytelling. It's about the influencing. It's about exactly what you said of like, is 37 to a 40 or a 43 motivate an organization, or is it about kind of feeling the heart and the emotions and the storytelling behind that? So how do you think about your role and what you're doing on the measurement side to demonstrate the value, and then how are you thinking about your role as a salesperson, a marketer, a storyteller, a connector?
Yeah. So let's start with, I don't hotly contested. Let me say it differently. It's our job as leaders to diagnose and prescribe the best way to communicate and be effective within our company. And if we worked for a hedge fund, we would probably have to do it all via ROI
Yeah. Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah.
And if we worked for a brand that was so tied to emotion, maybe it's all emotion. And I think and there's a balance in my company. We measure. We have a really rigorous prioritization. We use NPS. I have every metric I have a love and a hate with. But I think it's important to have and use the metrics. For example, I like NPS. Everybody can look at that and say, "Oh, we're doing better or we're not." What I hate about NPS is that an individual person in their job doesn't know what they're going to do to change NPS. So, and I don't care about the score that comes with NPS as much as the system that you build. Oh, now that we're hearing this, what do we do differently? So I'll give a concrete example of how we use NPS at Salesforce.
Yeah.
We look at it by role. Oh, what's the NPS of decision makers
Yes.
versus administrators versus developers versus end users, and by region or by product that we use. And then we could look at hotspots. And I'll give it a good example. We have upgraded Salesforce's user interface a few years ago to some Salesforce over our old classic interface, which was getting a little long, 20 years old. And we see a lower NPS score with our end users that are still on the older UI. And then the feedback they give us is the UI is not as modern as we'd like it to be. And we think, okay, we need to work on enablement to the decisions and ends to move people up to those to that interface, and that creates an action for us related to it. So, I I'm an analytic. I was an engineer in college. I like numbers, but I've really learned to embrace that this is about emotion, and then I can have numbers that support it. And I've got to find a way to thread the needle on both, Christine. For me at Salesforce, it's not either or. We're an AI driven company. I've got to have numbers to prioritize, but then I can always use emotion to remind people that this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit on one of the, and we had an interesting conversation last week. We released our CX peer survey, and one of the conversations we were having was, and you just hit on it, this blend of the CX leader. You need to be an analyst. You have to be able to look at the insights. You've got to be able to do the analysis that connects the dots. Your NPS being of 46 is irrelevant, right? Exactly. And we're doing the same thing. You analyze by role, you analyze by region. We see tremendous variations of duration as the customer and how engaged they are. If they use our products for one use case, they have this level of engagement. They use it 2 or 3 use cases for more than a year, we see that lift. So if you're not looking at the data, which brings you to your second role, which is system integrator, I don't know, any, and making that easy for our customers of how are you connecting this feedback, this sentiment data, this critical data. I mean, you guys talk at Salesforce about that customer 360 view, and sentiment is so important, the why behind the what. So how do you either what had been done before you started or since you started this role, how much time are you spending with, say, your IT organization to connect the dots and join the data? And I don't know the answer to this, and you're not supposed to ask questions in interviews live if you don't know the answer, but that's how we roll. So what are you doing to integrate?
Well, so I'd say let's start with the first thing I'm trying to do is enable, right? My job is to train everybody on the importance of this. We have, you're right on, our customers at Salesforce use Salesforce to improve their experience with their customers. They're doing digital transformation, sales, service, marketing, commerce, analytics. So, and because we're helping our customers do that, it makes it easy for me to enable and train people. Look, we have to be good at this. We have to be a role model. Our customers are looking at how we treat them as the baseline for how they should treat their customers. So let me start with my job. I have a huge customer experience department at Salesforce. It's 50,000 employees strong.
Yeah,
and there's 5 of us that are doing program management, prioritization, scorecard, enablement, etc. But the way I take that burden off my shoulders is give a little bit to everybody in the company. And we do a lot with our IT team, business technology team at Salesforce, to really work on improving that, and all the business leaders. I mean, let's use this COVID pandemic right now, because when it started, I reached out to some of the folks in our finance and collections and teams that are receiving cash, and asked, what's happening? What are you seeing? And the story is meant to share like how far a finance team has come along or a collections team. And they've started with, hey, Tony, we think we got this. We've already started in China and in Italy and a few other places. We've changed the collection notices. Instead of saying you owe us money and you're overdue, we started with, is everything okay? We hope your business is all right. If you're not aware, your payment is due. But really softening the language. And that's not something that's in the muscle memory of a lot of finance people, right? But this is an ongoing program that they built. They have been really conscious about, if somebody hasn't paid, is it more valuable to send that to collections, a third-party collection company that's going to get pennies on the dollar? Or is it better to write it off, but know that if that company comes back into business, that they'll have had a good emotional experience during the breakup or when they decided not to use Salesforce? And this is more in our small business accounts than it is in the big enterprise. But everybody is now thinking about weight emotion, right? How is somebody feeling? And a customer's experience is the sum of all the interactions they have with us emotionally, not the one day that they did something great. And uh, the BT team has been really good. Our information technology team at Salesforce has been really good about helping us build most of our new systems with journey maps and the customer experience in mind. And they have these designers now that I know have really led some of that transformation. Again, it's maybe I'm lucky, but it's why my department doesn't have to be big, because the company gets it, and my job is a enabler, nurturer, sometimes cajoler, and sometimes cheerleader.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we talk about how customer experience starts with employee experience. It starts with who you hire. It starts with the culture you build, and it starts with remembering that you are here in service of your customers. That is your job. They pay the bill, they pay every one of your salaries, you deliver value, and they are responsible for the success of your organization. That it is the customer. And
Yep.
that, while there's just so much challenging about the last 6 weeks, or for some in China for months now, the the what it's done for organizations, or the organizations that started with a strong culture, is it does boil things down to the basics. And we see the same thing in a lot of the folks that we have a chance to talk about the fact that all over their organization they're seeing folks strip down to, how can I be in service for you in this moment right now? I'm not here to talk about where you're going to be in 3 years. How can I help make things easier and with less effort, and meet you and first understand where you're at?
Correct. I mean, this is kind of how fast can you respond to what they're asking for? Look, I don't know how long this interview is going to be online. Today is Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. Right? What is everybody starting to work on? What does my go back to work plans operationally look like? And yesterday at Salesforce, we announced a new product, work.com, that's
That.
really solely based on this. This is not going to be a 20-year product in our product history, but we know right now it's what our customers need the most. We know we believe there's going to be some ROI, but if this a venture capitalist was asking us to show it all, we wouldn't have a 5-year target addressable market. We just know it's the right thing to do to mobilize, and that will create more goodwill as we do other things with our clients. And I think back to your numbers question earlier. Think back to think of individual numbers, not these big beacon metrics like NPS. Just look at how every initiative you run. What was the before and after that initiative? You might, I can think of ones we do. We hear from our customers. Please make it easier to implement your product. Make it faster when I decide I want to use it to when I go live. So then we have a new program to improve that onboarding experience. We made changes in it so people have to, in a way, declare their major. I'm in sales, I'm in marketing, I'm in B2B, I'm in B2C, I'm a manufacturer. And then we have templates to help get them there, so that we pre-build pieces of it. In the program, we can say the customers that went through that now have gone live 40% sooner than our other clients. That's a better customer experience, because that's one of the metrics we measure. And will NPS move a bunch one way or the other? I don't even care. They're going live faster. What they've said to me is that I want to be a better promoter for you, Tony. They've said, gee, Tony, your products, you have a lot of functionality. We were the ones that asked for a lot of functionality, by the way, and now we're mad we asked for all this functionality because there's too many options and we want it simple again. And we have to teeter-totter back and forth between a zone that's acceptable of customization and implementation needs.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that actually brings, because you hit on ease of use or implementation. So, one of the things that folks really struggle with customer experience is that they're able to get their arms around the importance of asking customers. And so they'll stand up, whether that's through their support organization, success, product or marketing, sales, be gathering that feedback. And then we've hit on You
Yep.
have to bring that feedback in and make sense of it, not at an aggregate, but you need to analyze it of where are the hot spots within there. You need to match that against the business context. Is this a priority for our business right now? And how do I think about that? And then presumably you have insights that you're gathering from all parts of your organization, and then becomes the real meat of it. None of us get into this to ask questions and write reports. We get into it to actually improve the experience, which means that you take action. You take action through your partners and your teams and your peers. So if you could hit a bit on how do you operationalize, drive accountability, prioritize, program, manage? And I know that's a lofty one and we're getting the 5-minute warning, but I would love, this is so often where folks struggle and get frustrated is because they have these insights and they can't
Yep.
mobilize. So talk to me a bit about practically, how do you operationalize that?
This is hard, and I don't want to in 3 minutes make it sound like, oh, we've cracked the code. But I'll share at least 2 or 3 learnings during my time. One is that you'll often hear why am I doing this? Because you've been doing it a while and you're not taking action. So I think it's really important to say we aren't going to, maybe we won't do these surveys anymore or don't get feedback. Well, why are we not getting feedback? Well, because we should only have feedback if we're going to do something with it. And I say this a little jokingly, but I think threaten is too strong a word. Saying, well, why would we bother doing this if we're not going to take action? You need to get pre-agreement from people. If we're going to do a survey, well, why are we doing this? And then presumably we're going to do something as a result of it. So I think you can't do a roadshow 6 weeks after a survey and expect everybody to say, Tony, Christine, thanks for telling us this. Let's change everything. You have to warn people and let them know it's coming, and they've got to build it into their plan and have a process. So that is kind of rule number 1 for us. And number 2 is we want to have some we have very good project management team that does program management for CX, that we look at which projects are we doing, how is that responding to the feedback, and are we keeping ourselves honest, and that we're not ignoring it all. But if you think of a good product manager, they think of the planning pie, right? They're trying to do a new release. And some of it has to be innovation and new stuff to help them stay ahead. Yeah. Some of it has to be competitive response. Hopefully there's not too much competitive response or you're way behind. There's stuff for support and reliability. There's stuff for feedback you're hearing, for internationalization. But there needs to be a piece of that, let me say, planning pie that supports we're listening to customers because they've already bought. And if you do all of it for the customers, but you don't do any innovation, well, you're not going to have new customers. But if you do only new customers and you don't do enough for the existing customers, and you run a risk. And I think that's the art that we try to balance. And it's been fun. And I want to use, I got with 1 minute.
Yes.
We do this the hard way. I want to share an example. We have an amazing site that we've been running at Salesforce called Idea Exchange for over 15 years. And customers write in feature requests. It's an online feature request database. People vote on it. It's incredible. And you know what our customers told us? How come you are not acting on all those things? And it turned out our product managers they were mining it and finding great features to do, but they didn't provide a great feedback loop. Yeah. A, so you got to provide the feedback loop. And B, they didn't always pick the things that got the most votes. And there's not enough time to explain why. But we changed it last year. We put a new rule in. The top 3 features that get voted during a 30-day voting process, the top 3 we guarantee to put into the product roadmap. We have a saying from our leader in products that says, if it's in. And the message to our customers, that changed. The amount of voting went through the roof because people know their vote's going to count. Yeah. And they were all lobbying each other to come into the top 3. So voice of customer works when they know that you're going to act on it. So make sure you share back that you're acting on it.
That is wise words, wise words to leave on. Tony and I met at the beginning of this year at a leadership gathering of Salesforce and SurveyMonkey leaders, and I knew right away I had found one of my tribe and a kindred spirit. And Tony, I both enjoy talking to you. You inspire me. I learn so much. You're inspiring me how I'm going to spend this afternoon, thinking through a few of the actions I'm working on with my team. So thank you so much for taking the time. It is an honor to have this conversation, and I hope for those of you guys who joined from home, I hope you took away some insights. I'd love to know what they are. What struck you? What surprised you? What will you do different in the next 30 days? So please share that with us. We would love to know, and that'll help us build this program on what more you want to hear. Just to give a preview, what's coming up, SurveyMonkey has our virtual Curiosity Conference. It will be hosted on May 19th in North America and May 20th for EMEA. We have some great conversations, a CEO conversation on leading through change. I have a conversation with the Forrester analysts on how to measure programs. So really great stuff on May 19th. And then our next CX Confessions, May 27th, Charles Gao from the Golden State Warriors. Talk about when you are a customer experience leader who thinks about a fan experience and your product, basketball games, and your entire team are suddenly at home. So we'll have a wonderful conversation about how he thinks about delivering fantastic fan experience and what's changed for him. So with that, thank you guys. Please stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you, Tony, for an inspiring and wonderful conversation.